Okay, so it's 1:30 p.m. on my watch. Welcome everybody to the afternoon session. If you haven't joined us already for the morning session, just to remind us all that this is the 69th anniversary seminar of the Faculty of Social Administration at Thammasat University. And this morning we had a very interesting seminar involving keynote speakers, and this afternoon we have split into rooms for our presenters and for our research paper presentations. And this is the international room. This is the only room which is being presented in English. So thank you for joining us. And another thing which makes our room unique this afternoon is that we have 3 students presenting from our Social Policy and Development International Program. So there's a strong emphasis on developing research skills on our BA program. So we're very grateful to our 3 presenters today for all the work that they've done. I'd like to thank them in advance. And just to run through then how we're going to do it today, the order. The actual theme for the session is studies on vulnerable communities in Thailand and the Sub-Mekong region. So a very important and current topic. And we will start with Nan Tuzar Ong, who will be presenting her research on rights to citizenship for refugee children, temporarily displaced persons in Thailand. And then following that, we have Kanokpan Amon Metakit, who will be talking about sharing her research on accessibility to the rights of disabled children in Thailand. And last but not least, the third presenter will be Binmilai Sundararahushita. Sorry for my pronunciation, Binmilai. And Binmilai will be presenting her research on Thailand education and the emerging disruption. So the way we will do it is that each presenter will have 15 minutes to present their article, followed by 10 minutes of questions and answers. So please do ask questions after the presentation. You may do so by raising your hand and asking the question, or you may also put your question into the chat box if you prefer as well. And I will also be asking some questions as well, I'm sure, as we go along. So without further ado then, let's begin with our first presenter, Nan Tuzar Ong, who will be talking about rights to nationality for refugee children, temporary displaced persons in Thailand.
Good afternoon, everyone. So it is an honor for me to be here today. So I'd like to say thanks to my professor for giving me this opportunity, and to all the participants for joining us today. So let me introduce myself. My name is Natuza Aung, nickname Staki, from Myanmar, and currently as SPD students 4 years. So today I'm going to present my work on the topic of right to nationality for refugee children or the displaced persons in Thailand. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here's my table of contents. There's several main topics I'm going to cover in my presentation today. So you may see in my slides. So let's start with the introduction. Next slide, please. So Thailand has received and permitted refugees for a long time already. For over 40 years to stay in Thailand, start from the Indochina War, which is took place in 1962. So lots of people come to the Thailand at that time as a refugee and considered as a boat people. So from the Indochina War to the Cambodia and Vietnamese War, which is took place in 1978, lots of Vietnamese and Cambodia came to the Thailand as a refugee. So just right after the Thailand formulated a policy to restrict the movement of the refugee, another mass refugee, and turn to the Thailand, which is considered as the Burmese refugee, which is took place in 1984 due to the conflict between ethnic armed group and the Burmese military getting groups. So right now, Thailand hosts the 9140 camp refugee and another 5,000 urban refugee. So there are 9 refugee camps along Thai-Myanmar border, which was placed in the remote area in 4 different provinces in Thailand. So due to the increases of the Burmese refugee in the Thailand, so there were newborn baby in the refugee camp, which is considered as a legal and stateless person. So in this study, I just would like to focus on the camp refugee rather than the urban refugee because the case is different. Next slide, please. So research problem, even Thailand had hosted refugee or permit refugee to stay in Thailand for a long time. They don't have the legal framework or the policy to deal with the refugees. So rather than they control most of the refugee under these 2 acts, which is the first one known as the Immigration Act and Nationality Act. So under the Immigration Act, any immigrant will be considered as an alien. That's the reasons that they need a valid document or passport to stay in the Thailand. So there are 2 types of immigrants in Thailand, which is legal and illegal. For the legal immigrant, which are people who hold the valid document, and illegal that come to the Thailand illegally. So under this act, even with visa or not, they cannot obtain the nationality. So the children of the immigrant children cannot obtain the nationality. So to the Nationality Act, so any person who is not Thai will be treated as an alien. So even under the Section 7 stated the acquisitions of the Thai nationality by birth, but the further information was indicated in this act. So which just means that at least your parent should be a Thai in order to obtain the Thai nationality. But in 1992, the act was revised. So those born after the 1992 can apply Thai nationality through nationalizations. Even when Thai does restrict some right movement of the refugee, as a member of the party of the UN or the CRCs or the ICCPR, they cannot deny to show obligations to provide protection to the refugee children or the migrant children. So under the CRC, the Section 7 stated that the children shall be registered immediately after the birth and acquire the nationality. That's the reasons that registrations act in Thailand was revised. So the birth certificate or birth registrations was issued to the refugee children or the migrant children. Under the ICCPR, Article 24, so stated not really different from the Section 7 of CRC. So the children were hand the birth certificate or birth registrations just to prevent them to become a stateless rather than convert the Thai nationality. After this international law was implemented in Thailand in 2010, the Thai government granted many thousands of the stateless children the Thai nationality through Nationalizations Act. Next slide, please. So for the concession framework, the Thai do not, the refugee are not entitled to the nationality. Is basically due to the politics and the 1951 refugee conventions. As we are aware that going back and from between the country 100 years ago seems normal, but right now it's treated due to country get the independence of the found the nation state. So many regulations was formed and policy also was formulated to prevent some group of the people in the country to take in the privilege. So besides that, resistance and the discriminations toward the migrants or the refugee group, this kind of discriminations does not only happen on the society, but also happen on the high level of the government or the policy makers, due to that the domestic law was used to control most of the refugee. Due to the Thailand is not member party of the 1951 conventions or the 1967 protocol, so which declare legal definitions of the refugee, and then stated responsibility of the country to provide full protections for the refugee. Thailand is still using the domestic law to control most of the refugee. Next slide, please. For the methodology, I use qualitative explanatory research guided by both qualitative and quantitative. For the qualitative, I use the in-depth interview with the camp. For the quantitative, I collect the answers from the participants for the possibility of granting Thai nationality to the refugee children in the future. For the sample, I use a 4 camp and choose the 14 participants to interview in my research. So, and I also designed the 3 main questions to other participants, but the question was unstructured, so which is mean that even I asked them 3 questions in the middle of the interview, if I found the interest, stay information, I will ask them more. For the various limitations, the first one, access to the accurate data. As you know, the topic is a little bit sensitive, so we cannot really access the accurate data. So for another one is the reach to the people inside the camp. So basically we had 9 refugee camps in Thailand, but I just used 4 camps to do the research. Just to the other 5, I cannot really reach the people. Next slide, please. For the analysis, based on the analysis, Thailand now granted Thai nationality to the stateless children. So refugees are also considered one of the stateless groups in the Thailand. However, whether they are entitled or not, we need to look for more information. Just to there are many stateless children in the Thailand. So the study find the key measure that refugees will never receive a Thai nationality if they remain in the camp. Just to they automatically inherit their status from their parent, which is known as an illegal alien. That's the reasons that they need to come out to apply for 13-digit card in order to apply Thai nationality through the nationalizations. So there are several requirements to the Nationalizations Act. So which is the first one, you have to born here in Thailand. So refugee children meet these requirements. And the second one have to stay here more than 15 years. Despite also most of the refugee children meet the requirement, but the last one, you have to have the 13-digit card, which is clear that it's a kind of discriminate against refugee children to apply Thai nationality through the nationalizations process. That's the reason that they need to come out. So the question is, where can they get the 13-digit card? So the easier place to get the 13-digit card is to enter the Thai public school, because Thai public school will issue the document to the migrant children. So they will get the 13-digit cards from there. Even when some of the refugee children could obtain 13-digit card, it doesn't mean that they were entitled for the Thai nationality, because the authority will review the status of the children carefully. So by looking at every circumstance, this means that the refugee children do have a chance to get Thai nationality in the future, but it really depends on case by case. Next slide, please. So coming to the conclusions, this study start with my assumption. So my question is that would it be possible for refugee children in the future will receive the Thai nationality? So this study touched upon 3 areas, which is the first one, policy, and F to control the refugee, and the last one is 13-digit card. I also touch upon the nationalizations process. So every circumstance, the study would like to conclude that the possibility of granting the Thai citizenships or nationality to the refugee children is the empirical one. So as I told you before, that is really depend on case by case. So becoming not really depend on the children's status. Next slide, please. So here's the policy recommendations from me. The first one is I would like to recommend that revise a nationalizations process and requirements. As I told you that the requirement, one of the requirements to apply Thai nationality through nationalization process is to have a 13-digit card. So it's obvious that it's a kind of discriminate against refugee children to apply Thai nationality, even they are here for more than 30 years. For the second one, legal framework and policy. So if we compare refugee here to the Western, refugee Western have more rights and protection. So just to some country signed the 1951 conventions, but Thailand is not yet signed 1951 conventions, and they also don't really have a legal framework and policy toward the refugee. That's the reasons that we cannot obtain the nationality, even applied through the nationalizations process. The last one, show more obligation to the international law. We cannot deny that Thailand is one of the ASEAN member countries that had a good performance in performing to implement out the international law, but due to the 2017 constitution, which is considered as a high law in the country, stated that they will they will implement the international law only accordance with their domestic law. So that's the reason that we still cannot do anything about the nationality to Thai nationality for the refugee children. Yeah, that's all for my presentation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Taki, for your very comprehensive presentation there. And we've had quite a few people also joining us during that time, so we have a good number here participating. I'd like to keep this session as interactive as possible. And as I mentioned at the beginning, please do raise your hand if you have a question or type in your question into the chat box if you prefer. That's also good. So does anybody have any comments or feedback? It doesn't have to be, of course, a question. It can be your thoughts and areas which you might want to comment on as well from your own experience or from your own work. So I'm opening the floor now for any questions for Taki. So while people are thinking of their questions, I would like to ask the first one then maybe, and I'm going to pop it into the chat box as well, just to make it clear as well for everybody to see there. So my question is, Taki, can you see that? Based on your research, what are international organizations doing to help stateless children obtain nationality status in Thailand? I'm just interested to know about that.
What I find out so far is that they do pressure the Thailand to formulate the policy or to formulate the act for this area, but this to Thailand is not member of 1951 Refugee Convention, so they cannot really do anything about it. They just try to pressure. That's the reasons that the refugee children cannot obtain the Thai nationality. At least they do have the birth registrations, which is like different from my period. So I was born here at the time. They don't really issue the birth registration. So yeah, we are all becoming stateless. But right now, even the newborn children in the camp, they are no longer stateless. But they just cannot obtain the Thai nationality. But they do have a legal record. Yeah.
I see. So for international organizations, it's still as restricted as before, or it's become easier for them, do you think?
Not easier as before, just before, because like as I mentioned already, we don't really have the legal policy to control most of the refugee in the Thailand. So international law can do only one thing, that is that pressure on the Thailand to working on this area.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Does anybody have a question from the audience? Anybody? Right. Well, I actually have another question I would like to ask. And this is actually based, I also, of course, I read your research papers in advance, so thank you for providing those. So my next question is, you mentioned that the challenge for you in doing this research was getting reliable data. So I wondered, can you explain a little bit more about this? And does that challenge apply to accessing secondary data and accessing the respondents, the people who you try to interview as well? Can you tell me a little bit more about the problems you had or challenges in getting that kind of reliable data, which is, kind of important, isn't it, for research?
Yeah, so from this research, I use both qualitative and quantitative, and I use secondary and primary resources. For the secondary resources, I cannot find any reliable sources like a government link or something like that. I just have to use like article, which is too short, and I have to read some report and even take some information from the Facebook and Instagram. This too, I cannot really find information. And if you have a chance to read my paper, I even use my own experience to provide us the evidence, because I cannot access the data from the internet. For the primary, as I told you already, there are 9 refugee camps in the Thailand. So yeah, I can contact people only from 4 camps. another 5 camp, I cannot contact them due to the internet connections. Yeah, some camp they are really in remote areas, so you cannot contact them unless you go there and interview. Yeah, this kind of challenge.
Yes, and that made your research very interesting and powerful, of course, when you use your own experience and data from your own background. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments at this point? We have plenty of time to ask questions or to contribute to the discussion. So
yes, yeah, I have some questions.
Ajarn, please. Yes.
Yeah, like are your experiences in the refugee camp that are stated in Thailand, right? And I want to know, like, you really believe that when they like let them are in just those areas and not developing them to the like civilizations or like in the city or take them out from that area, do you think it is a good or bad? Have any pro or con that like? What do you think about how it is? Like it should be the camp forever, ever, or we should develop them and let them out from the camp and like develop themselves and prove or do some like opportunity more than just in the camp. Like also you have opportunity, really good opportunity to be here. And I want to know like if you really want like in the camp children should come up and like do something or not. Yeah. Maybe you can clear me out on that. Thank you.
From my perspective, I have to say that yeah, I mean like I want refugee children from inside the camp to come out and not to like just detain inside the camp, because as you know, right, there's a lot of negative consequences to be there. You cannot even come out come out from the camp, not even come out, you just even step up a little bit, you can get arrested at any times, and you can like you have more risk to deporting back to your country. So that's really I have to say a huge problem for the next generations, because the next generations, they don't even access to the formal education. They just have to like study there, and after that they graduate there and they got married, and the life cycle again and again. So I mean, like there's a lot of poverty there. They cannot access the formal educations, cannot come out, cannot go to war. They just have to stay here and waiting for the international donation. So this was really bad. If possible, I just would like the Thai government to grant them a Thai nationality, even not all, but just some. As I told you, that just applied through the nationalizations process would be a little bit, not a little bit, like much better compared to keep them inside the camp. Yeah, that's all from my perspective. But if you look for the politics perspective, you might not want them to come out because they can cause a lot of problems. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Taki, for the full answers. Any other questions? Actually, I have one other one for you, actually. And you mentioned, also I'll pop this into the chat box as well, just to maybe make it clearer there. So you mentioned, Taki, that there's not much research, right, on the right to nationality of children refugees. So I'm interested to know, what are your, sorry, there's a misspelling there. What are your recommendations for researchers in terms of maybe future research topics in this area? So, you know, as researchers, we're always kind of looking to build on other people's research. So what do you think people can take forward? What are your recommendations? What areas for researchers in this area do you think can you recommend?
I actually had talked to my several friends from the July and from the other university who is doing the master degree. They do work on this kind of topic, and they do go to the camp for the interviewing and collect the data. But the problem is that this one, I'm not really sure that whether it's true or not, but according to that, they said they cannot publish it out. It does not really appropriate. I mean, like they had inappropriate contents. That's the reasons that they cannot publish it out. So I believe that many people work on this area, but just they cannot publish it out. Yeah. So I don't have any recommendations for that.
Okay, I see. So there are restrictions on what can be published at the moment as well, right, related to this topic. So it makes it difficult. Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much. Are there any, just 2 minutes maybe, any other questions? One final question maybe for Taki before she leaves us. Taking quite a few questions there. Thank you very much, Taki. Then we'll move on. If you do think of a question as we go along that you'd like to ask Taki, please do raise your hand and we can go back later or put it in the chat box, okay? So thank you very much, Taki, for your presentation and for answering our questions. We are now going to move on to the next person, Kanokpan, and who's going to take us through her research on accessibility to the rights of disabled children in Thailand. So over to you, Kanokpan, for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin. So I introduce myself first. My name is Kanokpan. I'm a medical now. I'm studying in Social Policy and Development, SPD, and now I'm in 4th year. And the research that I come up with is the accessibility to the right of the disabled children in Thailand. Next slide, please. For the table of the contents, I come up with the introduction, research problem, research methodologies, analysis and finding, and also the policy recommendation and conclusion. Okay, so let's begin with the topic. So here, I come up with first the keywords of my research, and also the quote that I come up with my researching. The quotes for my paper that I come up with it is not disability, it is ability to be helped. Like what we see like nowadays about disabilities, we see them like vulnerable. We see them like, okay, they don't have ability much to do things or give benefit to society much. But I want to like give us some reason, and maybe it can change your mind a bit about this. Like people with disability, they're born different, yes, but their ability can be improved. We can give them an opportunity and improving them, not just looking them from the disabled or image on how they are disabled, but looking them through how they can do or how they can develop their ability. So the keyword of the dignity, yes, everyone needs dignity, also disability. They have rights to have their own dignity. And the really important about this is the exclusion. Disability are faced to the exclusion in many ways in the society. At first they were born, they also get the exclusion already. And also in many dimensions of their life, the exclusion word will be really explained well on how they are dealing with their well-being and all life going on. And another word is the equity. I just know this word from the SPD also. I think everyone also know more about like equality, and we promote about equality, but in the reality, I think equality not suit well to it, because everyone cannot get the same thing. So equity is the word that I learned, and maybe someone doesn't know yet, so I will explain some about the equity word. Equity is mean like when you give things or give opportunity or help people who are in needs, or the specific needs of them. Like children, then maybe they need more care than adults, or maybe disabled, they need more care than other people. So equity also will be the word that perfect match with disability, because somehow they need more, or maybe they need less. Maybe the same is not the same with the disability. So equity must be the word that will explain well. And also the future. Future is mean disability. Somehow they thought that, oh yeah, I am disabled, and also society see them as disabled. Their future is not much brightened, and also looking smoothly like the ordinary one. So future, this word will be like I want to like inspire and also like let the audience knowing that futures of disabled are so important because they're already born, they are already our society. So it's really important. And also features about protection to the mother who are pregnancy, to be able to access to the healthcare that can check disabled of the children, or even to check about the Down syndrome or whatever health that they need to. Because nowadays in Thailand, to do that testing, it's really expensive and government not support much to this. So it creates a lot of disabled and people who have like Down syndrome or autism in the poverty a lot. And they need to responsibility with these children whole life. So I think to protect at first, it better to give more development and better for the society in the future. Okay, so the next slide, please. For introduction on my paper, I include with the children with disability and their family that face ongoing challenges in accessibility to their fundamental rights and integrating into society. And also their ability are neglected. Their capacity are undervalued and their needs are prioritized. Children with disability have genetic conditions that affect the physical, mental, social development from birth, although who have like suffer serious injuries and nutrition deficiency and infection that can cause long-term functional challenges. Or also those who development delays, learning disability. It's a lot in the people who are in the poverty, who doesn't have much development by their families or school. And also children with disability can include individuals who had like traumatic childhood circumstance and later acquire anxiety or depression in children. And also one thing that I want to highlight now in Thailand, also I think in many nations they face about discrimination to the disabled people. And also disabled itself also face daily obstacle that limits their ability to. Next slide, please. Come up with a research problem, the accessibility to the rights of disabled children in Thailand as a result of human rights perspective on disability. Attention has shifted from the child physical or mental limit to the society constraint. Society, yes, they're born disabled, but society make it harder to disable to be lived with it. And also that's restricting their capacity to obtain like basic social service, reach their full potential and exercise their rights. So accessibility is the key of the disabled children in Thailand to have basic needs and better living conditions. Next slide, please. The research methodologies. This paper based on study of Thailand accessibility to rights of disabled children and discuss to the lead for disabled children in Thailand and the social model of disabled, and also provide a brief insight into both qualitative and quantitative data. So all the data that I collect, it's come from like Convention of the Rights of the Child, CRC, Department of Empowerment Person with Disability, Disability Thailand, and also Thailand Research Institute for the Empowerment of Person with Disability Foundation too. Next slide, please. And to the analysis and finding, I want to like go back to at first how I do the research. I come up with the history of how disabled being do and mentioned as the vulnerable in our, let's say, society. The history of disability has like primarily been one like stigmatization, exclusion, and prejudice people with like disability, like especially in like particular children with disability who are frequently excused from the society. They have historical being seen as passive beneficiary of welfare and object of the charity. This history, like charitable giving, endure in many nations and an impact on how children disabled are viewed and treated. This I want to highlight. Not yet. Go back. Yeah, I want to highlight about object of the charity. I didn't mention much in my paper, but for now I have space to talk about many people who are interested in this, and maybe they can think about this more. I just know about the word of the human zoo. the human zoo is the rate of like when it starts from the like African country that then have like really poor citizen and they are like lack of food, lack of sanitation and other things. And now someone come up with the travel attraction and let people go to see them and feel empathized for them and donating and all those things. But how they're dealing with it seems to be so good that they give the donation, but the topic and the main point of that it's quite shift a bit because like we look them as like I sad for you, I feel bad for you because you are poor, because you are disabled. But in other way, if we think that donation is the opportunity, donation I see the value and you should get the opportunity, not because I feel sad for them. So many places also Thailand in somehow they will show the pictures of the like ugly disabled or people who really but in bad condition. I think they're not proud in that to present themselves. And Thailand also now promoting the PDPA. I don't know I'm correct or not, but the law that also saves the rights of people. Even us ordinary cannot take other people pictures and promote in the Facebook or whatever. Also disabled, but the law are not focus much to the disabled or the charity that promote bad looking and how sad of the disabled it is. So yeah, maybe like this can, maybe if you're interested on this, you can like find more about the human zoo or how we think and how we look through the charity in somehow. But in the other hand, some charity are doing well and they're really intention good to them, but many is that not. Yeah. So next slide, please. Okay, come back to my paper. So for the analysis here, I come up with a social model that the disability social as a result of human right perspective to the disability application have shift from the child, physical, mental to the societal, the constraint. And also the right reflect to the important places on equity and non-discrimination in the international human rights standard. And also needs that are combined with the design of the health, welfare, and educational system that prevent attitude of the preconception that contribute the underestimation, the lack of access to facility, transportation, and also full range of the community resources available to the rest of the population. And also the impact for the poverty and deprivation of the community as whole as like more specifically on the people with disability and the families. Next slide, please. Okay, so here will be like in-depth information from the paper that I come up with. Like here is the rate of the disability in Thailand, so like 2022. Somehow like some people know like disabled maybe like just no leg, no arm, but they have more than that. Like they also have like redundant, like and autism, learning, intellectual, mental behavior, physical, deaf, cognitive, blind. So many of these dimensions are covered at the disabled children. So the number that's come up is quite shocked to me, like disabled who start from 0 to 21. Just only that year report, it's cost like 55,000 plus, which is like actually in the reality it's more than the double. Like we know the data of Thai and government somehow it's a bit a chain of fibs or somehow. So I assume that it's more than that double. Yeah. So it's a lot, and how they're dealing with it, it's not quite well. Yeah. So next slide, please. So it's due to the convention to be like successfully implementation in Thailand. So they did something, but yeah, let's see. On the law, Thailand law were like completely changed in accordance with the convention between 2007 and 2013. They now promote and defend the rights of people with disability. So in several like disability related registrations, so like PDEA, and also modification and the Education Act for the person with disability, and also the amendment of the important concept reform. But in reality, cannot be actually applied in the real world since they fall under the jurisdictions of all the Thai ministry, not just the Ministry of the Social Development and Human Security, and the very least 5 ministries are required to join and enforce the law. So it's hard for them to like push them together or maybe somehow. So it's really not an easy going policy that we're coming out for the disabled. And also the implementation of the policy is carried out the very vertical and hierarchical manners, which result in the department of the service delivery system for the individual and with the disability. So the law is quite not, yes, they have the law, but they're not focused much to the law with the children with disability. It will be the ordinary law, and it is the lack and the gap between how they can fight for their rights because they are different than others. So it's the problem is also the law and also the government sector. They need to talk more and combine more to make the more impact to this. Next slide, please. And another thing is the basic needs, the right to healthcare, education, work, access to the information, disability pension, loan for self-employment, sign language, or whatever like they really need, since they are the best, they are the disability. And it shows that it's not working much in Thailand. And if you see, you go to the stair, even in the airport, somehow they build up the stair without the wheelchair way or whatever. So I think they're not looking to that much. And also the major issues such as like discrimination against person with disability must be eliminated. Like maybe many company, they're doing like, okay, you disabled, you get less more because you benefit us less. And how they're thinking like disabled and vulnerable, it's quite not correct in somehow. And accessibility, as like for law of disability, must be able to access to benefit from the like physical setting, transformation, information, communication, technologies, and all facility and service that they need. And don't forget to concern about the family too, because they are the one who dealing with their child. And to support just only child is not enough. Families also need to be strong enough to protect their own child. Next slide, please. And for the policy recommendation, I think government is the key sector to create a huge impact to this, and they need to work a little bit harder to like recommending the policy, to push up the policy, to cover all. And that's something that I ever experienced an internship in the Ministry of Social like development thing, and it showed that they're not focused to the disabled much because they thought that disabled are not benefit, like they cannot give tax, and they create a lot of expense. So the things that come up the project or how they push the policy of disabled is quite less. They will put more to the ordinary student in the education of ordinary students so they can like benefit in the future for the country. But for the disabled, it's other ways. So I think maybe we need to look through more value of disabled more than that. And also we need to support to the families and also the resources and how we try to create the mindset of people in society to look them more better and see their like value. Yeah. So next slide, please. For the conclusions, like I think like all disability, they have their dignity, and they doesn't want them to be kind of sadness for other or want people to be sad with them. They're born like this, and I think they're sad enough. I don't know, maybe, but maybe we should change the mindset. And what I researched and looking through, I think prioritizing of the disability are quite low in Thailand. People looking to them like vulnerable, and somehow it's objective of the charity. So it reflects quite well. Even I'm not in the intern in the ministry, but even I am in the society, and I see how the disabled are be living here. It's quite hard, and it's not easy for them to be here. So they really work hard to be living. So I think people should see how valued they are and give the opportunity to them, similar as like people who are ordinary or normal people. Yeah, so that's all of my paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bam, for taking us through several aspects. They're very important aspects of children with disabilities in Thailand. You took us through a lot of stuff there, the history of the stigmatization, exclusion and prejudice, and how they're viewed as passive beneficiaries, like you said, of welfare. You talked about mindset as well. You came back to the mindset aspect at the end as well, how to create a shift in the mindset. And right at the end there, I really like the very thorough policy recommendations, right? Very specific ones as well. So thank you for sharing all that with us. Does anybody have a question now? I'm going to open the floor for any questions for Bam on any aspects of her research. Don't be shy. And you can also put your question into the chat box if you prefer. Lots of ideas expressed there, lots of thought-provoking data. So maybe I will go first then, Bam. So my question is, in your research data, you present the profile, right, of the children disabilities, right, their disabilities in terms of what kind of disabilities, which is very helpful. But I was wondering, based on your research, can you tell us more about the profile of these children? So, for example, where they are, rural, urban, socio-economic status of the family, poor, middle income, wealthy, what form or level of education are they getting? So my point by asking that is this data, is that kind of data available, do you think? Or is this also a specific area that needs to be addressed? So do we need more reliable data to inform policy making?
So from this information, the data that I come up with, I took it from the Ministry of Social Development and Human Security, that they report the disabled children in their data, and most children who are joined into this ministry, I think I assume myself, like most of all they are in poverty and they need help, so they come in the system. But the children who are, they'll have like 3 steps. I think I will like separate in 3 categories. Like first, who are out of the system, never show up, no money to show up, or too far away, and their children are tied up in the home and whatever, like many. But another category is the people who are poverty and needs help, and I ask help from the government, or they register their children to the disabled guard or whatever. So that data will be coming up. And another way is the people who are in the middle and in the higher class. They most of all they don't register their children in the government data, because most of all they put their children to the private hospital or private care that they have. So I think the data that's coming up, it will be the poverty to the mid society that are like put their children and need some help from the government, so they can collect that. But I think they are not walking to the village or to collect those things. Yeah, will probably be like that.
I see. Thank you very much for your answer to that question. Yeah, I was wondering about that. And towards the end, you have, like I said, I really liked your policy recommendations at the end. And I was wondering, do you also, I mean, in terms of policy recommendations for the Thai government, that's very clear, right? And you suggest how they could tackle the problem, which is great. You have lots of good ideas there from your research. Would you have any recommendations on how Thailand can leverage or can use international organization support, like UN, to support this kind of programs for these children as well? So not just the Thai government, but international organization?
Yeah, at first, maybe it's too hard to be listened, but I will mean like Thai government should put down their ego down. Yeah, because now when I experience internship there, I face is that then the organization not much asking for the international organization, and the Thai government are not supporting much to the NGOs who are in foreigners, or somehow they try to support themselves, but how they're supporting it's not enough, but on what I think. And if they put their ego down and do the cooperation with the UN, NGOs, and people who want to involve with this, I think it will be great successful, because like Thailand itself, they cannot grow international much, and they're not looking out to the box much. So what it means like to change the egos and image that they really want for themselves. I want like them to look through to the citizen and to the disabled more than what the organizations or how the ministry can make the prices or make the image by their own. Yeah, if they can take out of that and do a good cooperation with the international organization, I think it will be huge successful. Yeah.
Great, thanks a lot, excellent. So does anybody have any other questions? I don't want it just to be me asking questions. Anybody have questions for BAM? It's a very interesting research, I think, and I'm going to pause there for any questions from the others. We have, how many do we have? We have 18 participants. There must be some questions out there somewhere. Everybody taking it in, I think, yeah, absorbing what's being said at this point. No hands raised, right? No, not yet. Okay. I'll just finish then with one last question from me then, Bam, if you don't mind. Or any others, please do jump in, okay, in the meantime. So my question is, this kind of research, and also the Taki's research as well, all this research is very challenging. So what challenges did you face when you were doing this kind of research?
The real data. The really real one, not just the one that not disabled, or the one who just make it more nice, make the nice paper and reporting it year by year to just like live out their work and from the table or whatever. I want to have like accurate or like specific data that can really prove and open more here. Yeah, that's it will be really challenges to find the data that is really real, not make it up or whatever. Yeah, in Thailand. Yeah.
Sure, that's a challenge for all researchers, I think, to decipher between what's useful and reliable sources and what's not. Thank you, Bam. Well, you've done a great job anyway. So of getting the data for the purpose of your research. So any other questions finally before we move on to the next person? If not, okay, I think not. So thank you very much, Bam.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and the third student we have today is Bimilai, so Bua, and I'm going to ask Bua to talk about Thailand education and the emerging disruption. So again, another very interesting area chosen under the overall banner is studies on vulnerable communities, of course, in Thailand and the Sub-Mekong region. So we're looking at this with Bua from the education perspective. So over to you, Bua, when you're ready.
Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yep. So we'll begin. My name is Bimilai Pred. I am a third-year student studying at Social Policy and Development Program. And it is one of my policy brief that I did last semester. And it is on Thailand's education and the emerging disruption. And I will look particularly on Thai policy, which is 15 years free education. So first, let's go through the contents for today. I will start off with introduction, then research problem and theoretical framework, analysis, and I will end it with policy recommendations on where Thai policy can be improved according to my opinion. So the question, which is very important and is one of my research problems, is that why education matters. First of all, we have to say that it is a big deal in like human life, because it is also stated in both UNICEF and UNESCO that education is a fundamental human right in which every person should be receiving. And also on national level, which in this context is Thailand, it also stated that on Convention of the Rights of the Child that the children should be receiving education. Secondly, it is apart from its priority and why it is important on human rights, it also can improve on human resources, which is on self-development of individuals, on both intellectually and mentally, because when going to school, you are not going to being educated in like math, science, and computer and all, but the children will get a chance to live in a society, in a community, apart from their parents and family, in which that will build the skills into like communication skills and those skills that is needed to live with other people in society. And under that section, I also put cognitive skills, which is like critical thinking, and also non-cognitive skills, which is socio-emotional skills like self-control that I mentioned earlier, how they're going to develop mentally skills. And apart from that, with having higher education or the quality of education, it might be able to expand the job opportunities for the children in the future. That is not only limited to the jobs that they will be able to get if they only have a certain levels of education. And the next one is economic development. So this is more of like long-term results from having citizens having quality of education. It will be able to increase the economic development by having increased productivity. And in the end, as a result, they will be improving in standard of living, because people will get to have more like opportunities to the job, meaning that the employment rate will rise, vice versa with the unemployment rates. And also people will be gaining more money through wages and contribute back to society by tax. So that's how the living standard of the people in a whole country will improve as a whole. And on this slide, I have a graph on learning outcome and education spending. This is the graph from PISA, the graph on PISA. I think I got it from the website OECD, if I'm not wrong. And it shows that how the education outcome and the amount of expenditure on education is controversial, or like it's against. So you can see on the graph on top, there has like a red bar, and it is on Thailand. Comparing to Singapore, which is on the right-hand side, you can see that the score is much higher, whereas on the bottom, the red block on the middle is Thailand, and compared to Singapore, which is more on towards to the left, you can see that Thailand spent a little bit of money more, but however, in the result of the education, Singapore has much more improvement or the higher standard compared to Thailand. And this is one of the research questions that I was questioning, why is the result kind of against on what it should be, because the higher you spend money on, the better of the benefits or the result should be. So this is the case that why I would like to do more research or study more. And on this slide, it is National Education Expenditure Accounts. I got the graphs from a Thai government website. However, it is in Thai. I tried to search for the English version, but none of it is available as for it at that time that I was searching. But the larger amount on the upper graph, the first graph, is that the green bar is where the educational support for the students, like financial aids particularly on education, is being given for the whole expenditure. Whereas one thing that I see is very important, and it acts as like a base or a foundation of the education, which is the teachers or lecturers. And within that section, the color is the green. You can see the thin line on like in between the yellow and the beige color, if I'm not wrong. And that's where I think the money should be spent more on teachers into like development, upskill and reskill, because every day like knowledge will change and we have to adapt that fast in order to be able to shape the students into the market needs. This is one of the analysis that I can get from doing the research at probably the reasons that our PISA score is pretty low, because we spend little amount of the improvement on teachers, whereas we tend to focus on giving money to students so that they can have access to education. And in the second graph, the lower one, the highest graph that it gets is the golden bar, which is the elementary or primary students, like from grade 1 to grade 6. And the point that I would like to highlight is the tertiary education and also vocational education, which is a lot lower. And I'll be explaining that more later in policy recommendations on where I can see Thailand can improve on this type of education, on vocational education. And on this slide, I also written that the resource allocation is kind of inefficient distribution of resources, which I have touched on, that there should be more money given into teachers, upskills and reskills. And also there is multi-dimensional poverty in access and quality of services. I think we can see it in real life that in Thailand, in Bangkok area, the school tends to be better, not only in quality of the teacher itself, but also the materials when we study, like computers and everything. And we also even have the tutoring courses available in Bangkok area. However, compared to the students who are living in suburban area or in like not major cities, they might have more difficulties into accessing the quality education. And I would like to highlight the vocab that is quality, because I know that students are now getting into education, but quality is the most important. And on this slide, I have graduates and labor market demand, skills labor shortage, and mismatch in demand and supply of labor. And what I can see is related to the last slide is that probably we should be focusing more on vocational educations rather than sending them into like post-secondary, like universities or regular high school path. Because Thailand, they also have like very large automobile sectors and industries that students might want to take opportunities into learning more and work in those type of areas. And also other type of jobs, for instance, like arts, handicrafts, like artisans. And also here's the problem of quality of education and up to world's knowledge. And that also refers to like development in teachers, teaching, and upskills and reskill knowledge at all times. And the last point I have here is social values and norms on academic versus vocational education. From my own experience, when I talk to like my friends or their parents, they see that vocational education is for the kids that have kind of poor education level, like you are not that smart to enter regular high school and go to universities, or they have like financial difficulties. And they see that a person who have a degree in university will tend to get a higher wages, in which I feel that there's something misconception about how they look at vocational education, because right now, according to my research that I have seen, they are lacking in the area of vocational workers to work in a factory, especially in like automobiles and like AI that is going to develop in the future. And here's a related framework that I can relate it to. The first one is SDG, or Sustainable Development Goals from United Nations. And it is particularly on number 4, which is quality education, education for all, for quality, equality, and inclusive education. And that's also going to link with the more national level strategic plan, which is the 20-year national strategic plan for Thailand. And in this plan, they're aiming to build stability, prosperity, and sustainability. And under that, on the specific area, which is education, and Thailand also have the National Education Plan, which focus on developing the education system so that the Thai students can have access to educations and so on. For analysis of my research paper, the research objectives that I can see is that the opportunity to provide to students is the free education. So the Thai 15 years free education focus on this point. However, there's still some of the issues that can be improved so that the program or the policy can be better developed and be more efficient, which is the lack in transparency. I think one of the data that I have looked on is one of the government form online, and it states something on like the education expenditures on how they're dividing the money between the Bangkok area and suburban or like the other cities, and that made me questions on how they divided the money and why is the ratios like that. Or for instance, the example that I have shows is on the money spending on teachers development and upskill reskill, whereas the students funding supports. And the next one is quality of education that I explained earlier on between kids who are living in Bangkok area. And that's also related to inequality. The next point is education is a tool to bridge the gap of income. On the first side, I think I mentioned that the education can also improve the living standard of people, since there will be more employment rates and people will gain more wages, meaning that they can live by themselves without needing help from the government. And that's also going to increase in labor skills and better living society. The last point is really important, and this is related to policy recommendation that I will mention on the next slide, which is to focus more on student-centric curriculum. And this is from my personal experience when I studied in Canada, that you look at the faculty or the area that you would like to work, and there will be a requirement on in what courses you have to take and what you have to pass and the qualification, and you study through that. Meaning that if you are not planning to be a doctor, there's no point of studying Bio 12 or Chemistry 12. And me personally, I would like to study on something like social. So I have to take social 10. And that's also going to make the student be more ensure the students interest on what they would like to do in the future and practice it now. Yeah. And here's the last slide, which is the policy recommendations. From the research that I have done, I see that there's a shift from the focus on horizontal distributions, and there should be a tiered program according to students and family, meaning that just like what I mentioned before on student-centric curriculum, to make the education or the pathway according to students' interests. And the next one is direct cash transfer, because each students have different backgrounds and different problems. So you cannot expect that this amount of money will be enough for a person. Just like Bam, the last speaker, mentioned on equity. So equity is where you give support according to their needs. Doesn't mean that everybody have to receive equally. So this is the point that I want to kind of bring it up. The next one is additional training. Apart from regular education system in high school or in school, there should be extra course or online course that maybe you can provide it according to students' need, which going to support on lifelong learning and sustainable development, because that's the whole point of sustainable development. Being sustainable means that you have to develop at all time, and there's no limits on learning. The last point is demand-driven education, which is cooperation from industrial sector, like employers. One of the example could be on Germany, continuing vocational education training. I think this is very interesting, and Thai government could possibly adapt it into the policy. I mentioned earlier that there's a mismatch between the market's needs and the education that students were studying. there's a lack in vocational workers. As a result, if you like ask cooperation from a business that needed students, maybe you can elaborate on or like have a cooperation in building syllabus and curriculum so that it meets the need of the market. And that's probably can reduce the rate of unemployment. The next one is vocational education, and it is the backbone of the country development. The third one is meet the market need that I mentioned earlier on the point. And the last one is to ensure citizens' employment. Yep, thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that, Bua, for your presentation on education. And I'd like to now open the floor up for one last time during this session for questions for Bua, please. So is there any budget constraints that you came across during your research that makes your solution perhaps not doable in Thailand?
I think so far from what I see, Thailand spend huge amount of money. I would say like majority of money on education that they're trying to improve. But the problem that I would like to highlight is how they manage the money or how they like distribute the money is what I am questioning, referring to the results that came out. But for the constraint of the money or like the limitation on money, I do not think that Thailand faced that kind of problem because they set the education as their priority.
I think linked to that question, actually, maybe I can follow up on that as well. Student-centered learning and those dimensions of education which you mentioned, there's nothing new about that in Thailand. In 1999, Thailand underwent huge education reforms. NEA, the National Education Act in 1999, really transformed basic education, right, in Thailand. And they had policies to improve student-centered learning, lifelong learning, quality assurance. It was a real shake-up, and it was the first big education reform in the history of Thailand. And it was the first National Education Act, anyway, in 1999. That's 24 years ago now, right? So my question is, according to your research, there hasn't been enough progress, right, in that area in terms of the low PISA scores, learning outcomes. Why do you think that is? After 24 years, those policies were set out. This was a major reform of the system. Why do you think you've touched on a few things, I think, right, already? Maybe you can just give us your views on why there hasn't been so much progress in that time.
Right. I would like to refer back to one of these slides that I mentioned, which is the focus on teachers or professors' development, because the world is moving very fast now. You can see that when your professor talks on some of the topic, you just type on the Googles and everything just pops up. I feel that education in Thailand is kind of slow, like a bit slower, maybe, because the world is moving in a fast pace. As a result, teachers needs to be adapt at all like the circumstances. They need to do like upskills and reskills at all the time. Sometimes I see on the slides that they're using like kind of like the old theory, whereas there's some new concept or ideas that can be adapted into real world. And especially on the demands of the market, they need some of the type of the graduates to be in a certain education level on like one area of aspects, but the schools are not teaching them that particular area. So I think the problem can be solved by like developing on teachers first and how the curriculum is set out. Like for me, I would like to learn gig economy, and that's probably not in high school, like courses or like Bitcoin. It just came across like in like 5 years or like not more than 10 years, according to like my opinion. So I feel that that's why the result of PISA score is kind of like lacking behind. And we are focusing more on like memorize, not to like really understand the concept.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Bua. Yeah, I agree with you. Investment in teachers. I mean, one of the other things that was coming out of that National Education Act was how decentralization, right? Giving schools more power and the government stepping back. But actually, a lot of research shows that the government has not really stepped back that much. It's still there, despite the rhetoric. So that's also an interesting tension. So the act itself says there'll be a full decentralization, and it has happened, of course, across the country. There has been a decentralization, and schools have more autonomy now and control over what they want to do, and the teachers, therefore, supposedly more empowered, right? But very interesting research exists to say that that might be questionable as well in terms of the government truly allowing that to happen. Interesting. Can I ask you also actually about vocational education? Because you do say that that's one of your key points in your research, really, is that it comes out quite strongly in your research, right? That vocational education should be prioritized by the Thai government because it can address the unemployment problem, right? In your paper, you mentioned that. So based on your research, what's the Thai government done so far in advancing its vocational education? For example, it has a Office of Vocational Education Commission, right? And so on. What has it done in that area? And what else do you think is needed in terms of vocational education?
So actually the things that I put in my research is I saw one of the case that, or one of the schools, the project that has already been introduced. I think it's a collaboration between the seaboard area and the schools that they are going to produce the students who will be like working in the area of like automobiles and stuff. But I only found one school, or like not more than like 2 or 3, but the main one is just one school. And I feel that that's the good start of the government. However, the government also should abolish the bad reputation of vocational education. And you can see from the news that they're using violence and everything, but actually that's like not the whole point of studying vocational education, because even in like other countries like Germany or South Korea, they also have a specific vocational education, which is really important for their countries. And I can see that in Thailand, we also have like several industries that might need the students that graduates from vocational education. And also the business itself, they're also needing the students. So probably the government should build more schools or collaboration with the industry so that it meets the needs of the market, and students are having a better chance of like job opportunities rather than graduating from university and being unemployed.
That's a really good point, how industry could work more effectively with government and schools on education. Thank you, Bua. Does anybody have any follow-up, or hopefully this is stimulating some ideas here about education in Thailand? Oh yes, we do have one here from Ali. Can I ask one more? How is Thailand's society and market attitudes towards the vocational diploma, given that mainstream diploma is still considered to have higher prestige? Right, good question. What do you think, Bua?
Right. So I would like to refer back to the last question that I answered, which on the news you might see that students are like those who are joining the vocational education is not it's like the students that they have a problem, like whether it's financial problem or it's family related problem. And a lot of parents, they see regular diploma or like Matrium 6 or like high school as a thing where their students can get a higher wages, like 15,000 baht if they graduate university, where vocational education, they will be just working in an automobile shop with like minimum wages 300 baht, which is not the case, because I feel that if you graduate from vocational education, you get into a labor market, you work in a company, you can upskill and reskill yourselves, and you can even increase your wages more than 15,000 baht even. But the thing is that the mainstream of the ideas or the perception of the society towards the vocational education is really bad from the news. Yeah.
Yes, and that's a challenge for many countries, not just Thailand, of course. There's the mindsets concerning possibly vocational education compared to the traditional prestige of a university degree and so on. That's something that's also depended on history of the country. It doesn't exist to such a degree in Germany, for example, which is interesting, given that the vocational aspect has been given more prestige from way back. But in the UK, on the other hand, it does have a similar struggle to what you've just mentioned. So it depends as well on the context and the country. Very interesting. Any other questions? We have a few more minutes. Maybe I could ask also my question. I'm also interested. I mean, you talk about the problems, right, with the education system, and there's a lot of issues often, right? And they're quite complex, and they're also interconnected, a lot of them. And your research suggests that. Because you take us through issues such as inefficient education budget, access to education, inadequate basic education, etc., etc. So based on this, based on your research, can you give us your personal view on which issues or problems the Thai government should be prioritizing, and where you think it'll have most impact in terms of making sure that students and graduates are ready, you know, for emerging situations, new technologies, and so on? Which areas do you think they should be prioritizing out of all those issues that are facing them?
In my opinion, first of all, they should start with the base or the foundation of the education system, which is the syllabus. It should adapt some of it so that it meets the up-to-date knowledge. Some of the subjects might consider to be removed, and some of it should be like replaced, like technology or how you edit the video and stuff, because that's the new generation subjects. And that's going to prepare the students into getting into like universities or explore what they like and not like. Right. So first the syllabus, then the teachers or the professors, lecturers, to prepare themselves to be able to like, because in my opinion, professor and like lecturers are the mold of the products. If the starting mold is not in a good shape, then you cannot expect the final results to become perfect or to be like meeting the markets, right? Meeting the market's need. As a result, the two important things for me for now, which is the syllabus, curriculum, and the professor, lecturers, and then you can start with students and so on. I think these two are already hard for the government to start working on.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, I love that. I mean, the curriculum and then what you call the modes of that product, yeah, the deliverers, the actual teaching and the teachers as well are following that closely behind. Yeah, very good. Okay, so I mean, it's a massive challenge facing any government, of course, but I think you've really unearthed through your research and pinpointed some of the key areas there that Thailand would be surely, you know, continuing to work on together with its partners as well. There's lots of collaboration going on, of course, as well between countries on things like this, which is also very exciting, and learning from each other. So thank you very much, Bo. Just before we finish, what were the main challenges you found in doing this research? That's my last question.
Not only on this particular research, but in all my research in Thai context, it's very hard to find information in English and also information on anything, because I felt like the database in Thai system is very small, very like on specific areas, and if you want to like dig deep into like one particular area, it will be very hard to find, and the data itself is not up to date. Sometimes it's like 10 years ago, and sometimes you can't apply to like now situation now. So that's my main challenge. And actually all of my data that I rely on this research is secondary source, right? So it's really difficult for me to find reliable source and up-to-date source.
Yes, so that's a big challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And you guys are capitalizing on that, right? By doing the research itself. And I think there's lots of opportunity in Thailand. Like you said, English language research to reach out and to share with the rest of the world and to do joint research as well with other countries. So yeah, you touched on a challenge, but also an opportunity there as well, I think. And you've all shown that you've faced your research challenges very positively. It is very challenging endeavor, of course, researching, and it can also be a very lonely task and sometimes overwhelming when you're faced with with maybe lack of data, sensitive data, like we also talked about with Taki at the beginning, especially, and so on. So I'd like to thank you, Bua. And does anybody have any final comments or feedback for Bua? I'd also like to just remind you all that there's an evaluation link earlier in the chat box, and we'd be very grateful if you could just click on that before we close the session and give us your feedback on how you felt the session went. That will help us to work on areas we may need to improve. But I have to say I've certainly enjoyed the session. And I also read through the research papers in advance as well. So maybe I had a bit of a head start on others who've joined because they had the presentations, which are also very engaging and gave us a really good snapshot of your work and your research. So are there any other final comments or feedback from the group? I'm just sorry, just checking to see. No hands raised. Okay. In that case, I would just like to thank again our 3 students from SPD, Taki, Bam, and Bua, for sharing it with us, their interesting and very thought-provoking research, right? And also in pointing us in directions where further research could be conducted in those areas. So we looked at the rights to citizenship for refugee children and temporary displaced persons in Thailand. We looked at accessibility to the rights of disabled children in Thailand. And then finally, we looked at the Thai education system itself and the Thailand's situation in terms of looking ahead to the future and how it can focus, where it should focus in terms of creating a skilled and healthy labor force for the future and employability. So I'd like to thank mainly our contributors who've done an excellent job today of sharing their research with us. And I'm sure you can, if anybody's interested in reading those research papers, I'm sure our presenters would be more than happy to share them with you if you wish to read some more or to use them indeed for your own research, because I know there's a lot of there are students here who are doing research in different courses, and I'm involved with one particular course for the 4th year students, for example, where research is required, and I know other lecturers as well also. So let's please share these ideas and support each other. For that purpose, I think today's been a very successful session. And I'd like to thank you all for joining. We have finished fairly early. I mean, so do feel free to join the other rooms, which will be in Thai. Those of you who can understand Thai. I'm sure there's lots of very interesting research going on in other rooms as well. So I'll draw this session to a close and thank you all for joining, and look forward to the really big anniversary next year, of course, the 70th anniversary. So whether you're still on SPD or not, or whether you've joined us from other areas, next year is a very special occasion also for us. So we look forward to seeing you all again then as well. But in the meantime, we still have series of public lectures, for example, expert forums on behalf of the Social Policy and Development Program. So we continue to bring in what we hope to be very exciting experts in different areas of research. So stay tuned and check out our website and Facebook and social media and so on for those updates. So thank you all, and I wish you a very nice week ahead. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, presenters. Bye-bye.